Good afternoon, everyone. It is currently just before 12:15 p.m. here. This is episode 2 of our Elsa update videos. Again, I'll be doing these as long as Elsa is an active system threatening areas that you may live. Now, I want to start off and preface this with, if you watched my video yesterday, you know that I talked about how Elsa was forecasted to be a tropical storm throughout its entire life cycle and sort of maintain that way and just be a tropical storm up until if it made landfall in the US. Well, I went to bed last night, checked the National Hurricane Center, the page you see right before you right now, and Elsa was still a tropical storm, as expected. I wake up about 9 o'clock this morning. Suddenly, it's a hurricane. Just goes to show that no matter how much we predict it, what we expect it to do, Mother Nature has its own plans for systems and where things are going to go, and we can't always rely on models and forecasts because of that fact. Now, one thing I want you to notice in the background, if you noticed yesterday, the LED lights back up here were red. That was just a color thing. My color scheme is red and black. Fits well, right? So I came up with a new idea. I am going to, from now on out, use these LED lights to signify the level of threat that I believe we are under, or how much you should be paying attention to the systems that I'm talking about. Currently, right now, we're under a yellow, right? It's going to work like this. If it's a low threat, we're going to be green, right? Because we're in the green. Moderate, yellow, right? Should start paying attention a little bit. Then, if it starts to become moderate high, we'll go orange. If it's a high risk, we'll go red. And if it's an extreme risk of very damaging severe weather, catastrophic hurricane, we'll flip over to purple. Sound good? Any questions about that, leave them in the comments. But I will say, for right now, we are on yellow. Oh, that might be a little bit of green. Oh, no, that is yellow. There we go. This color scheme is not the end-all, be-all. This is just my thoughts on what type of preparations you should be doing, what I'm expecting. In my opinion, I am by no means am I an expert on these type of systems. Tropical systems aren't even my forte. That's more severe weather. And even that stuff, I'm by no means any sort of expert, nor should you take anything I say as gospel. I'm just here trying to put out my opinions, detail some things out so you can see what I'm looking at, what other people are looking at, and hopefully make some things clearer, help you guys understand some other things. So, why are we under a yellow? Well, for one, it's a hurricane now. Elsa is now a hurricane. If we look, racing, remember how I said yesterday it was moving 28 miles per hour and that was exceedingly fast? Well, it's even sped up another mile per hour to 29 miles per hour. But as you can see, the pressure has fallen. Remember what we talked about yesterday? The lower the pressure, the stronger the system. So the pressure now has fallen below 1,000 millibars. If you remember yesterday, I believe we were sitting somewhere around 1,004, 1,008, somewhere around there. Now we're down to 995 millibars with max sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. Now, these hurricane force winds are kind of interesting to me, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. But again, as I said, moving west-northwest at 29 miles per hour. Now, I'll show you guys what you're all here for. I know you like to see the cones, where this thing's going to go. So, this is the current forecast cone for Hurricane Elsa. As you can see, it's currently sitting right down here over the Lesser Antilles. Should stay well, barring any major sort of pattern shift to the south of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico should have very minimal impacts from this. Maybe some rough surf, some rough surf, the occasional maybe rain band. Other than that, Puerto Rico should be pretty okay with this system. Now, as you can see, these black circles that I was talking about yesterday, it had the S in there for tropical storm, now showing hurricane up until it passes the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Hurricane warnings have been posted for both of those areas. And the reason why this system isn't expected to hold hurricane strength past this area right here, despite the very warm water that tends to sit down here and be fuel for hurricanes, is land interaction. Remember what I said yesterday about how mountains can sort of tear up tropical systems? Well, Jamaica, yeah, land interaction. Dominican Republic, Haiti, mountain interaction. Cuba, a lot of mountain interaction. So that should allow for the system to weaken quite considerably before it would make landfall in Florida. Hence why, after about Jamaica, they expect the system to weaken back down by 8 p.m. Sunday to a tropical storm again, and then after it moves through Cuba, maintain that tropical storm strength. Now, how strong of a tropical storm? That depends. A lot of the warmer waters are sitting out in this area out here. So if it were to take a more westward track, right, stay over that warmer water, it could be stronger. If it tracks a little bit closer to the coast, you get a little bit more friction from the land, slowing those winds down, more land interaction, raising those pressures up. Could be a weaker system, right? So we just have to see how that plays out. I do want to say, this cone is shifted slightly to the east of what it was yesterday. Not by a whole lot. If you remember, the cone yesterday was a little bit more over here for the center part, and I want to make it known, the cone is not the edge of the impacts, right? You can see that here. See this yellow blob down here? The extent of that yellow blob is the tropical storm force winds within Elsa. Not hurricane, tropical storm force at least. Excuse me. Now, somewhere in here is also getting hurricane force winds. It's very hard to decipher exactly where those hurricane force winds are. They could be confined in a very, very, very small area at the moment, but they are there at the surface. So, as you can see though, this blob extends far outside of where that cone area is for a majority of the time. The cone only gets bigger because of forecast uncertainty. This cone is only forecast for the center part of the storm, right? The main axis of rotation, the part the storm spins around, or what's known as the eye of the hurricane. Although Elsa doesn't exactly have an eye right now, you can think of that center part, even if there's no defined eye, that's where everything spins around. And so this is only tracking that part, and storms can go out for hundreds of miles away from that. I'm not saying Elsa will, but it happens quite frequently. You get impacts outside of this cone. So I don't want you to focus too much on this cone or the center part of the cone, because the center could track anywhere in here. If it tracks somewhere out here, guess what? Jacksonville doesn't really get anything, but Pensacola, New Orleans could get a lot more. If it tracks all the way over here, guess what? Miami gets a lot. Again, Jacksonville gets nothing. A lot of the impacts are out of the ocean. So it's very hard to tell exactly where the system's going to go. So I want to jump over now to the model data. This is the new run of the GFS that came out today. Excuse me. You can see Elsa sitting down here, a little bit stronger than what's currently forecast. When was this? This was model was run a few hours ago, but even then, I think the storm is stronger than what the model's showing. So just keep that in mind. So as we move forward in time, you'll see Elsa sort of. Oh shoot! What happened? Okay, we're good. As we jump forward in time here, you'll see Elsa move off, right? You see that it skirts past Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, hurricanes don't want to go over land. They want to stay over the water, and will do so if they can. We also talked about yesterday about this high pressure that sits out here that is steering the system, forcing it to take this path, because it can't go this way because this high pressure is sitting here blocking it, basically. Think of this just as a big wall that's sitting right here, not allowing the storm to turn off this way. But this high is forecasted to move off as this cold front you see here that's going to sweep through the area on the 4th of July. Actually, this actually almost speeds it up a tiny bit more into July 3rd, which would be a good thing for our 4th of July. That might let us dry out a little bit more than expected. We'll have to see. But as this cold pressure moves through, low pressure system along the cold front moves through, it kicks that high out a little bit to the, you see how that the H kind of disappears off to the right of the screen, forcing it to the east. This allows Elsa to start to make that, you'll see it here, start to make that northward turn, but you see a lot of land interaction here over Cuba. And this is where a lot of the weakening should occur, even if it makes landfall. If it makes landfall, down here in the southern tip of Cuba, that weakening is going to be even more significant because that's more time over land, more time over mountainous region that will really inhibit the storm. As we move forward, you see Elsa reappears over that warmer sector that I pointed out earlier and moves to the north, ultimately impacting right in the Big Bend area, a little bit more to the north and west of what the GFS was showing yesterday. Not too much. This is going to wobble, but a westward trend would be better for Jacksonville in terms of impact, because the farther west the system goes, the farther away we are from it. And even if it doesn't directly hit us, right, like I talked about yesterday, we'll be in this right front quadrant where a lot of tornadic activity can occur. And so the farther we are away from that, the safer we are here, the less strong our winds are going to be, the lower the flooding. All in all, a better situation the farther west the system goes. Even if it were to track more to the south over Orlando, yeah, we'll get some outer bands, and the flooding actually would be probably rather similar. But the overall tornadic threat would probably go down, and the storm would weaken more significantly than if it stayed off the coast. Now, one thing I want to talk about with this, the weakening of this system, not really weakening, but some things that surprised me. I want to jump over to the microwave imagery that I showed you yesterday. And again, if you watch this is over the last 24 hours. See those reds start to pop up. Remember, the reds are the stronger parts of the storm. Excuse me, let me take a sip of water. The stronger parts of the storm are where the heaviest winds, heaviest rainfall are going to occur. And you see a lot of these start to pop up. Right about here is where the hurricane force conditions were reported on the island of Barbados, sitting right here. So you see this big blob of red right before it gets there. That's probably where the hurricane force winds are contained. I do want to note that the thing that surprises me is I'm rather surprised that this system is a hurricane as it is. I mean, the hurricane hunters sampled out this system earlier today and really didn't find a whole lot of hurricane force wind speeds aloft. And usually in tropical systems, the higher up you go, the stronger the winds get, right? I mean, the closer you get, think about it this way. The closer you get to the ground, if you have your hand and you rub it on a surface, right, there's more friction there. But the higher up you go, that friction lessens, right? The same thing happens in the atmosphere. There's less friction the higher up you go, so the winds are able to go faster. However, in this system, because of the speed at which it's traveling, it's not entirely organized the way hurricanes typically would be. Typically, you would like a hurricane, well, hurricanes like, to sort of have, you have the eye here in the center, and the air travels into the storm out here, right? Travels up through the eye and spans out. And you can see that here on the actual side. You see these clouds on the upper level kind of spinning away, these strand-like clouds. That's the air coming up and being ejected. It's a form of ventilation almost for the storms. Now, Elsa has a weird case where usually in hurricanes, you want that to be aligned, almost straight up. It's the most efficient way for them to stay healthy and keep going. If you tilt that a little bit, it starts to lose efficiency and the storm can't get as strong. Now, Elsa has a very strong low level, but once you get up a little bit, the rate at which the storm is moving has not allowed the mid and upper levels to sort of organize the way it would, and it's tilted a little bit, but also let me think of the way to say this. the low pressure, you would think as you go up, the pressure drops, right? The low pressure aloft is not as low as you'd expect for the surface pressure that Elsa is presenting at the moment. And so there's not exactly, you think of a hurricane as a complete spinning system, and a lot of low pressure things are that way, where you have a nice symmetrical circle of wind coming in. However, here, it's not exactly a nice, even circle. It's not exactly closed off. You have winds kind of circling around, ejecting out another way rather than continuing to rotate. And so I'm not entirely sure if that made sense. I'm hoping it does. It's a hard thing to sort of explain in not overly meteorological terms, but hopefully that made some sort of sense. Basically, the system is not oriented the way that you would typically see out of hurricanes. Almost kind of like, not nearly to the degree as Isaias last year, where that thing was just a torn apart mess that I have no idea how it even existed. But this thing, for it to reach hurricane strength, is rather surprising to me. Now, again, I don't want to get too caught up in the fact that it's a hurricane now, because it's not forecast to be a hurricane when it gets here to Florida. It could be. It very well could be, right? And if it is, you'll see me, change the colors in the background, and I'll start referring to it more as a potential hurricane here. But at the moment, it's not forecast to be a hurricane. And even the European model, I know I showed you the GFS model. It's not worth showing the European model on here because it's kind of hard to decipher. Basically, we don't have access to all the European model data, and so you can't see the rain as you typically would see radar imagery. So, and it's a little too complex to show, but basically, the European model has the system being absolutely torn to shreds around here and just never reappearing. Ever. I say that. Let me try to show this. So what we're looking at here, is called 850 millibar vorticity, wind, and pressure. And all you really need to know is the brighter the colors on here, the more something's spinning. And so if we come back, you'll see Elsa sort of come into frame here. Right there. You see this red blob down here? That is Elsa. And it's red because it's spinning a lot, right? And so as this moves forward in time, watch the system just kind of fall apart. The Euro wants to take it a little bit more northward over the mountainous areas here in the Cuba. And Elsa just completely, you can see, it gets torn to shreds and never impacts anything. At least in the United States, I say. This is why we're saying the system has a lot of uncertainty to it, and not to panic. We could have a tropical system landfalling in Florida, Tuesday night into Wednesday. But I believe the National Hurricane Center says 8 a.m. Tuesday to 8 a.m. Wednesday. So sometime Tuesday night into Wednesday, the system sort of slows down and makes landfall. But we also could very well have it not exist past this point. That's just the way this works. And so, again, I want to keep reiterating this. I know I probably sound like a broken record. Don't panic, but prepare. Again, water, radios, flashlights. Although I don't think this system is going to be overall that bad. Don't expect something like the storms that made landfall in Louisiana last year, that did a lot of damage, but they can do some damage. Again, 55, 65 mile per hour winds over an extended number of hours can still do damage. Tropical tornadoes can do damage. This is all just the way that it works. Excuse me, I have my Wawa Blueberry Cobbler coffee here. I highly recommend if you enjoy coffee. But as this system moves, really the area to watch is to see what happens between 8 a.m. tomorrow and Sunday night. 4th of July night, if the system exists Monday morning, then maybe we start looking at will it landfall in Florida. I know the cone goes to Florida. I don't want you to pay attention to the cone. Think about the fact that there is a lot of obstacles in the storm's way in this area, and it might not survive past that. But if it does, then we start worrying about where's it going to go. It could very easily curve off this way. If this high moves east faster, guess what? The storm's going to make that northern turn earlier, mostly impact the Bahamas, and probably recurve out into the Atlantic. If that high stays west longer, it could go farther west and go into Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. That's just the way this works. Again, we make cones out because we like to plot things. We like to have an idea, right? But you notice how this cone isn't shaded in. That's because there's a lot more uncertainty past 3 days. We only focus on 3 days, right? That's a pretty good bet of where the system's going to go within 3 days. But even that's not certain, right? Granted, with the speed the system's moving, we have a little bit better idea because, again, like the analogy I made yesterday, can't exactly put the brakes on a tractor trailer going 80 miles per hour and expect to turn easily. But past this point, really, anywhere outside the cone is in play. So I just want to focus on that. Don't get caught up in the cone. Yes, the cone is over Florida. That is not the end-all be-all. We've had plenty of times where Florida's been in the cone of a system, right? And it doesn't come. But there's also been times where Florida wasn't in the cone of a system and it comes. So just be prepared. Don't panic. Just prepare. Again, water, flashlights, weather radio. Watch the news. Have batteries, candles. If you have solar lights, make sure those are outside. Let those charge up just in case you lose power. But other than that, don't panic. Just stay tuned to this page. Stay tuned to the news. I'll keep providing updates on here throughout the day. And then, again, video updates every day. Again, maybe not Sunday. Depending on how the system evolves Sunday, I might wake up early and post one on Sunday. But other than that, that's all I have for the moment. And maybe I'll make another video tonight, depending on how things change. We'll see how the system sort of evolves throughout the day. But other than that, guys, I will talk to you guys all tomorrow.